The first Fallout game was released in October of 1997 for PC and Mac, and was a milestone for the computer role-playing game genre. It would be quickly followed up by its sequel, Fallout 2, which would release just a year later. Since its inception, Fallout has risen from a cult classic into one of the most well-known franchises in gaming, culminating most recently in a TV series that premiered on Amazon Prime on April 10, 2024. Even though the Fallout TV show has made the franchise more accessible for general audiences than ever, an important distinction between TV shows and the medium of video games is that games allow the user to engage with the content, which is an important thing to keep in mind, especially for people who may have seen the TV show but may have not played the games. Fallout and Fallout 2, now referred to as the classic Fallouts, more so than later entries, put an emphasis on player agency and freedom, and allowed the player to engage with the game world and approach problem solving in any number of creative ways of the player's choosing. Now, this concept isn't true of all video games, of course, but it's an obvious thing that I didn't understand when I played Fallout as a kid, and in a way I was missing the point of RPGs entirely. My approach back then was to create the most viable combat character, and make the choices that would yield the most favorable outcomes with little to no deference given to the ethical implications of my choices. This generally resulted in my character storming through the wasteland like a murder hobo, leaving a trail of bodies in his wake. All this to say, up till now, I've never actually played Fallout as a role-playing game. But that's what we'll be doing today. We are the Wasteland Consultant, and our purpose will be to recruit a team of like-minded sociopaths to help our clients, the various denizens and factions of the Wasteland, solve their operational challenges, whether they want us to or not, and to, let's say, varying degrees of success. Just like real life. So the first thing we'll need to do is create our character. We'll be playing as a 28-year-old female named Dee with red hair and apparently no soul. Our character is going to be good at data analysis, spin doctoring, and throwing out swags when asked questions we don't know the answer to. Consequently, we'll be taking tag skills in science, speech, and gambling. Our optional traits will be Small Frame, which trades carry weight for additional agility, and Gifted, which is a broken trait that adds 7 additional attribute points to distribute at the expense of lowering all starting skill percentages. For our attributes, we have slightly below average strength, which governs carry weight, weapon handling, and melee damage. Great perception, slightly above average endurance, but despite our speech skill, we aren't actually very charismatic, as it turns out. Our intelligence is good, which means we are a fast learner, so every level we increase will gain more skill points to distribute, and we have the agility of a Scrum Master. Lastly, we're pretty lucky overall, which will manifest in various ways along our journey. And so begins our consulting career, and like most careers, it begins with an interview.
Come in, Chosen One. There are things you must know.
Our home, the village of Arroyo, is in trouble. Drought and sickness have brought our once thriving tribal village to the brink of destruction, and without sustainable sources of revenue, our village will soon die. The village elder is looking for a single candidate to venture forth from our home and engage with the various denizens and factions of the wasteland to attract traders and get the resources it needs to sustain and grow. That's not what's really happening here, but I'm using it as a framing device to explain why we have the inexplicable urge to get involved in everyone's business. In order to determine who the best candidate is, all applicants have to undergo an interview in the form of the Temple of Trials. But, as it turns out, the village elder is our mom? I mean, she already refers to us as the Chosen One, so I think we got this one in the bag. And you know what? It's nice to see that the age-old tradition of nepotism is alive and well, even in the post-apocalypse. The interview temple itself places several combat encounters with some overgrown bugs and some problem-solving challenges for the candidate to overcome. We fight some mutated ants, and then we come across our first problem-solving challenge, which requires us to recognize that a door is locked and perform a lock-picking function on it. The next problem-solving challenge requires us to use some explosives we found to blow open a door that can't be picked. But the real test here is to see if we have the jurisprudence to set a long enough timer and remember to drop the explosives from our inventory. The temple concludes in a final round interview with a tribesman who wants to test our skills in unarmed combat. Our character is fairly weak, but good at speech. We're a sociopath, not a fighter. Our tribesman says the battle isn't to the death, but on my first run-through, I discovered for the first time that you can actually fail the speech check by asking too many questions, resulting in him getting impatient and initiating combat right away. Also, in a bit of irony, my first character was named Mackenzie and failed the interview in this way.
You have died.
Our tribesman kills us easily. So much for not to the death. The second time around, when confronted with the prospect of hand-to-hand combat, Dee convinces our tribesman that any amount of fighting could accidentally result in serious injury.
You have died.
And that it's probably best not to chance it. He lets us through, and we pass the interview.
Congratulations, Chosen One.
After passing the interview, our mom gives us our first lead, a trader named Vic, who lives in the town of Klamath, due east of our village. Before we leave, the shaman Hakunin asks us if we have any open bandwidth to do some non-billable work. Although it's completely possible to say no, doing so will fuck up our reputation in the village, and we might have trouble getting work in the future. Our task is to clear the garden, which has been overrun by carnivorous plants. We're skilled in speech, science, and gambling, and none of these are particularly helpful in this task. And like most unbillable favors, this takes way longer than we thought, and we barely escape with our lives. We do some more odd jobs around the village, but we get impatient and end up lying about not having any time and proceed onward with our journey. Our first lead brings us to Klamath, a quiet rural town of herders and two main establishments for food and trading. We're here looking for Vic, the trader, who might have a lead into finding the Eden kit that could save our village. It's here that we're introduced to Sulik, a tribal who racked up a debt by getting drunk and smashing up a bar. He sounds like a great first addition to our team, but to recruit him, we'll have to pay off his debt. We don't really have the funds to do this, and even if we did, we don't want to pay more than we need to, so we ask around to see if there's any work that can be done to at least reduce the upfront cost of onboarding. We're told that a tribal, Tor, has gone missing, so in an attempt to establish some goodwill with the bar owner, we set out to explore the outskirts of the town. We find Tor, but encounter a hostile robot who looks damaged. We run past the robot because we have neither the combat prowess nor the repair know-how to attempt to fix it. Obtaining a keycard from the body from an apparently crashed aircraft turns the robot from hostile to friendly, and I return Tor back to the bar. The bar owner agrees to consider Sulik's debt paid, and he joins us on our journey.
The spirits with me, friend. They be all around. Spirits be everywhere.
Unsurprisingly, Sulik isn't the sharpest tool in the shed. But we probably shouldn't judge, since we are also technically a tribal, despite being the descendant of a vault dweller. The denizens of the wasteland tend to have preconceived notions about tribals, but as a consultant, this isn't anything new to us. But what Sulik lacks in sophistication, he more than makes up for in strength and small arms handling. This means that his utility covers several key weaknesses of ours, and also gives him the ability to single-handedly carry certain types of simple engagements. All the trappings of a great senior consultant. We continue to look around for Vic, and we find Vic's shack, but it looks like no one's been home for a while. We attempt to pick the lock to the interior door, but fail to do so, and we're told by one of the locals to look for Vic in a nearby town called The Den. On our way to The Den, we're waylaid by another team of tribal consultants. We tell them we work for a pretty prestigious firm, but they seem unimpressed and attack us. We stand back and watch as Sulik physically smashes the competition with his trusty sledgehammer. You know what they say, when your only tool is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. We arrive at the Den, which is a town built on slavery. Now, while we can join up with this faction, staff augmentation isn't really our thing, so we take a hard pass. Talking with the staff aug shop's owners inform us that they've got Vic and we can potentially buy him out of his contract for an exorbitant amount of money. Our options at this point are to sell Sulik and use the money to buy Vic, or we can sleep with the leader of the staff augers. But Sulik is too valuable to our team, and we're not that kind of prostitute. Speaking with Vic, he seems to think that if we can find a part in his shack to help him repair a radio, the staff augers might be willing to let him go. Since I'd rather not go up against such a well-staffed faction in combat, we look for a way to thin out their numbers. As luck would have it, another group is competing for a subcontracting role for the staff augers. We level up and take the Smooth Talker perk, which allows us to bullshit more within dialogue options, and pump more skill points into speech. We find out that the current contractor, Tyler, is having a party tonight and relay the news to the rival contractors to coordinate an attack. Unfortunately for us, the rival contractors want us to help implement the plan, I hate implementations. Our first attempt against the drunken but well-armed contractors results in our untimely demise.
You have perished.
Reloading the game has me thinking we should probably be better armed for an encounter like this. We get pickpocketed by one of the street urchins standing outside a bar, swiftly retaliate by punching the child in the face. This feature was removed in later entries of the Fallout series, which was a huge blow to immersive gameplay. We then confront the street urchin's handler, an entrepreneur named Flick, who operates at the edge of town. I stand back and watch as Sulik performs a buyout of Flick's business. We return to Klamath to attempt to get past the door guarding Vic's radio part. So here is where some of the idiosyncrasies of the version I'm playing come out. Specifically, I'm playing with KillApp's Restoration mod, which restores some of the deleted content, but more importantly fixes an enormous amount of bugs that the game shipped with. Remember that this game shipped less than a year after the first Fallout was released. One of the things I later found out was that the base requirement for lockpicking was set ridiculously high, meaning that without skill investment, picking the lock would be impossible. Now, not knowing this, I tried picking the lock again and I jammed the door. Then I tried having Sulik take a few swings at the door with his sledgehammer, and finally I tried taking a few shotgun blasts at it, all to no avail. At the time I didn't have any explosives, so I just put this task on the back burner and evaluated other available options to get Vic. My two options at this point would come down to either open combat or buying Vic from the Staff Aug folks. Since our character's luck stat's quite high, we decide to hit the craps tables to make enough money to buy Vic as a contingency option if combat proves to be too difficult. Before initiating combat, we take some performance-enhancing drugs and become immediately addicted. After several tries, we're able to take out Metzger and his staff augmentation team by locking the inside door to split the two groups of enemies, then setting up a bottleneck at the outside door where once again Sulik does most of the heavy lifting by spraying his submachine gun indiscriminately into the crowd of enemies. Moving inside, we take pock shots at the enemies through a small interior window, and end up taking out Metzger and his remaining group of staff augers. After freeing Vic, he suggests we should visit Vault City, the largest nearby urban hub, to see what we can find out about the Garden of Eden creation kit. Every vault was supposedly issued these kits to help re-establish civilization after emerging from the vaults. Now, unlike Sulik, Vic is pretty bad at just about everything. He can't shoot, he isn't very strong, and he runs from battle after suffering even the mildest injury. Vic joins our team as our new analyst. And while we're on the topic of team members, let's talk about Sulik. Sulik has been hard carrying the team in combat engagements and in random encounters in the wasteland, but he does have one glaring issue.
Rest in peace, Chosen One.
We arrive in Vault City. Taking off our armor reveals our vault suit underneath. Emphasis on the revealing part. I honestly don't remember the vault suits being like this. We're issued a day pass and frisked by the guards for illegal alcohol and drugs. Wow. Hard pass. We give all our booze and drugs, which we're still addicted to by the way, to Sulik, who's somehow able to pass unmolested. Venturing into the city, we're met with our first real project. We speak to the first citizen, Lynette, who explains the project scope.
There's a town, if you could call it that, to the northeast of our city. It is filled with creatures that are polluting the groundwater with dangerous radiation.
Just like a client from Texas after a few drinks, Lynette doesn't even try to hide her racist stance against the dirty, stinking goobacks. Her words, not mine.
Those things are operating a damaged atomic power plant. You see, they are immune to radiation. They don't care that they are slowly killing us with their poisons.
The settlement Lynette's referencing is called Gecko, and it's populated by radiation-resistant ghouls. We vaguely agree to take care of their situation somehow with the power plant until we can learn more about the situation.
Hello there, smooth skin. The name's Harold. I help keep this town running.
We travel to Gecko, where the local ghoul in charge, Harold, explains that if they had a part for the power plant, they'd be able to fix the radiation leakage. In the context of the Vault City project, Harold can be seen as another client stakeholder, similar to Lynette.
Our atomic reactors are mighty sensitive. The people I got running it mean well, but, well, they are not the sharpest tools in the shed, if you know what I mean.
Just your typical client problems, but luckily we're here to help.
We need a hydroelectric magnetosphere regulator, and it needs to be installed soon.
He says that Vault City has the part, but they shoot ghouls on sight. I'm thinking Lynette has a different idea about how to fix the gecko issue. We have no intention of going out of our way to harm our clients, so we return to Vault City to see if we can get the part.
What if we do? That is only a temporary solution. Please fix the problem, not their power plant. Am I making myself clear?
Lynette being her usual self. Maybe there's someone who's not a complete psychopath that we can talk to here. In a bit of political fuckery, we go over Lynette's head and talk to her boss. Counselor McClure tells us that as long as the issue with the irradiated drinking water is solved, we can get our Vault City citizenship regardless of what Lynette says. Fuck Lynette. We return to Gecko with the part and are faced with the option of attempting to install the part ourselves or asking one of the ghouls to do it. Harold had mentioned to us before that the ghouls' competencies are questionable. But implementing work plans isn't really our thing, and plus, if things go wrong, it'd be nice to have someone ready to throw under the bus. Fortunately, there's a ghoul who's able to install the part without issue. We can still take credit for the win, though. We return to Vault City and tell Counselor McClure that we've completed the job.
Have you resolved the situation?
We choose not to disclose to Lynette how we solved the problem. No need to burn bridges if we don't have to.
Excellent. You have conducted yourself as a true Vault citizen.
We collect our citizenship papers, which brings a nice conclusion to the Vault City project. Revisiting Fallout 2 and, moreover, immersing myself in the role-playing aspect has been a really fun experience. There were so many opportunities to do things in a more optimized way, and trust me, it was hard to break from that habit. I played the game without reloading, unless I died of course, and was surprised at how intentionally being a dick in dialogue choices often resulted in my untimely demise. Now, this was my first attempt at doing some longer form content, and while it was fun, it was incredibly time consuming. If you'd like to support my growing YouTube, please click the like and subscribe button, and if you'd like to further support me, you can do so on Patreon. Even $1 a month would help me reinvest and expand content for not only this, but other free services like salary info, news, and other consulting and business related content. I'm shooting for next month to continue the story of the Wasteland Consultant, and plan to post some other content in between. Until then, this is Consulting Humor wishing everyone success and happiness in all your professional and personal endeavors.